Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're tackling a topic that is just absolutely urgent. As the seasons change and that hard frost sets in, outdoor community cats are out there facing a desperate battle against the elements. But here's the really incredible news. You actually have the power to protect them. And no, it doesn't require a background in carpentry or some massive budget. We're going to walk through exactly how you can use a few super cheap materials to build a life-saving, totally insulated winter haven for feral cats. And the best part? The whole shebang takes just about 10 minutes. Okay, let's dive right into this.
When those temperatures plummet, it's a question that just kind of breaks the heart of any animal lover, right? How do feral cats survive sub-zero winters? Well, the tough reality is, without adequate shelter, they often just don't. Or at best, they suffer terribly. Now, a cat's body is honestly like a remarkable little furnace, but in frigid climates, that furnace needs containment. A proper shelter works by trapping the cat's own radiant body heat inside a very small, insulated space. It essentially turns the cat into a living radiator. But to create that space, we have to overcome some really common and unfortunately deadly human instincts.
So, let's get right into Section 1, the fatal bedding mistake.
Now, this is absolutely crucial because it goes against our very nature. Experts loudly warn, do not use folded newspaper, blankets, towels, or carpeting. They actually draw out body heat and defeat the purpose entirely by making the cat colder. Think about it. When we're freezing, our immediate empathetic instinct is to grab a big, thick cotton blanket or a warm towel, right? Because it feels warm to us indoors. But in an outdoor shelter, these flat, woven fabrics are incredibly dangerous. They completely lack the structural loft that felines need to burrow down into. But beyond that, there is a hidden scientific danger lurking right inside that fabric.
Let's totally geek out on the science for a second here, because it all comes down to thermal conductivity, which is just the rate at which heat passes through a material. And here is a frankly terrifying statistic. Water conducts heat roughly 25 times faster than still air. That's huge. Cotton, towels, synthetic blankets, they are highly hydrophilic. That means they act like magnets, actively pulling moisture from the air, and even worse, they absorb all the condensation from the cat's breath. When that fabric absorbs moisture, all those tiny insulating air spaces inside the weave are replaced by water. So that cozy blanket transforms into a highly efficient thermal bridge. Instead of trapping body heat, it rapidly pulls the heat right away from the cat's body. Actually, it's worse than that. In sub-zero temperatures, that damp blanket will literally freeze solid right underneath them.
So, if blankets are fatal, what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to the great debate, straw versus hay. You absolutely must use straw. Straw is made of the dry, golden leftover stalks from harvested crops. It's got these amazing hollow stems that trap tiny pockets of still air, providing just exceptional insulation. Plus, it has a natural waxy coating that wicks moisture away, keeping the cat perfectly dry. Hay, on the other hand, is dried green grass meant for feeding livestock. It is a hydrophilic sponge. If you use hay, it'll absorb water, collapse into this cold, soggy mass, and it quickly grows mold that causes severe respiratory issues in cats. So just remember this one simple rule. Hay is for horses, straw is for strays.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, the 10-minute DIY build.
Grab a pen, because here's your shopping list. You are going to need one large 30 to 35-gallon outer plastic storage bin and one smaller 20 to 22-gallon inner bin. Now, the absolute key here is this. Before you buy them, test them right there in the store. You got to make sure that the smaller bin fits completely inside the larger bin with both of their lids securely snapped on, okay? You'll also need an 8-foot by 2-foot sheet of 1-inch thick rigid styrofoam board for your insulation, a standard utility knife, and of course, a bale of that agricultural straw we just talked about.
6 by 6, 6 inches by 6 inches. This is the exact dimension you're going to need for the entrance hole. I know, it might seem really tiny, but a cat only needs an opening about the width of its whiskers, which is roughly 5.5 to 6 inches, to slip right inside. Keeping that door as small as possible is a real game changer. It does two critical things. First, it traps the absolute maximum amount of that precious radiant body heat inside the shelter. And second, it physically deters larger, bolder predators like raccoons or coyotes from getting in there.
Okay, let's walk through this super speedy step-by-step assembly process. Step 1. Cut your 6 by 6 inch hole on the long side of the outer bin. Make sure you cut it several inches above the bottom of the bin. That stops rain from splashing up or snow from blocking the entrance. Step 2. Cut your styrofoam down to line the inner floor and all 4 walls of that outer bin. Step 3. Drop your inner bin inside. trace exactly where the door is, and cut a matching entryway right through the inner bin and the foam insulation. Step 4. Pack the bottom of the inner bin pretty loosely with straw. Fill it just about a third of the way up, so there's plenty of room for the cat to burrow. And finally, Step 5. Cut a styrofoam ceiling to rest right on top of the wall pieces, pop both of those plastic lids on, and seal the outer lid.
Now, right before that final lid goes on, the total genius of this nested design really comes together. Look at this. You've got the dark plastic outer bin protecting against the biting wind and rain. Then, those thick white styrofoam panels step in to create an intense thermal barrier. Inside of that is the second plastic bin, and right at the very bottom, it's filled with a thick, loose bed of golden straw. Notice how the inner bin and the straw actually push outward? They hold those unglued styrofoam wall panels perfectly in place. It's just incredibly efficient design.
Wait, before you start hacking away at those plastic bins, I have to share a massive pro tip from our sources. Hard plastic storage totes get super brittle in the cold, and a utility knife can easily crack or just completely shatter the side of the bin when you try to force that door cut. To prevent this, just grab a standard hairdryer. Blow hot air right along your cutting lines for a few minutes to soften up the plastic, and I kid you not, your blade will slice through it like absolute butter. It saves time, it saves your hands, and it completely prevents you from ruining a brand new bin.
All right, bringing us to the final section, number 3, placement and protection. Because look, even a great shelter placed poorly is going to fail. So here are your final weatherproofing touches to guarantee success. First up, never place the shelter directly on the freezing ground. Elevate it a few inches using some discarded wooden pallets or maybe some bricks. This completely stops cold drafts from seeping up through the floor. Second, face the doorway directly toward a wall or a fence. Or at the very least, face it away from the prevailing winds. That stops icy blasts from blowing right inside. Third, remember these plastic bins are pretty lightweight, so weigh down the roof with a heavy rock or a piece of wood so the whole thing doesn't just blow away in a winter storm. And finally, run some silicone glue or heavy-duty duct tape right around the seam of the outer lid to make it 100% waterproof. And hey, if you're kind of short on time or resources, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good here. You can absolutely use a thick styrofoam shipping cooler, you know, the kind they use for shipping vaccines or frozen steaks. Just paint it a dark color for a little camouflage. Or honestly, even just a single plastic storage bin with a hole and some insulation works in a pinch. The key ingredients are always the same: a small enclosed space, restricted airflow, waterproofing, and straw. If you can provide those core elements, you are providing a life-saving sanctuary. Which brings us right to our final thought. We've seen how simple this really is, right? We've talked through the science of thermoconductivity, the honestly incredible insulating power of straw, and exactly how 2 nested plastic bins can turn a freezing, deadly night into a cozy sleep for a community cat. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. Could you spare 10 minutes this weekend to build a haven and save a life in your own neighborhood? The tools are cheap, the process is incredibly fast, and the impact is, quite literally, life or death. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay warm out there.